Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tuesday night, the 16th of October. Welcome to Carlton Live. Presumably, many of you are glued or have been glued to trade radio and all of the happenings that have been going along today. And you've probably just learnt, if you have been listening to that the deadline has passed. And the great news is we've got a great new player in Mark Pitney. Woohoo, Mark Pitney. Yay, Mark Pitney. Welcome to the Blues. That's fantastic news. A great result for Footy Club and something to celebrate. Of course, not the only news, but you would have maybe just heard Sauce tuning in. The bad news is we haven't managed to secure our targets of Tom Papley and Jack Martin, and that is extremely disappointing. And I'm sure there's, we expected a lot to talk about. There's going to be a lot to talk about on the negative side of things tonight. We thank you for joining us, and I better introduce my co-host in John Rowe. John, your immediate reaction, mate. Good evening to you.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Trevor. We were watching it together pretty much in those last few minutes and stunned. I think I said was my words, stunned. I'm getting quite a few messages through. A good mate of mine has sent through one word, shambles. I think that pretty much sums it up. I don't know how to respond. This is very, very raw. So we'll be really talking quite. I think we'll be talking quite emotionally tonight, especially in these first few minutes.
Yes, like I said, if you're just joining us, thank you very much for joining us. Many of you will be tuning into Trade Radio and the fantastic news of Mark Pitney arriving to our club, something to celebrate. A marvellous inclusion for our footy club. Obviously a player that we've targeted for a long time now, and he'll add some significant value to the club. No, I do jest. Let's say good day to some viewers. There's a few comments coming in. Let's get to them. Clint Bart McRae, wasted fucking time, fucking Essence scum. That probably sums up a few sentiments that are going around. Andrew Inglis, disgusted. Sack Sauce now, says Andrew. A few have turned on Sauce pretty quickly. G'day, Matty Wakefield, corruption. Lena Russo, her head hurts. G'day, Lena. Nicholas Bell, so annoyed. Richie Benencaza, Martin will be at Carlton. We'll have a chat about that shortly, mate. Sam Harabatistis, fuming is an understatement. Sam also says, resign Sauce. Absolute flop by Carlton, says Dylan Cooper. Yeah, there's a few things going around, mate, and what happened? What happened?
Well, I think pretty plainly, Silvani put that quite plainly with the Papley deal, that he was told that if the Danaher deal didn't go ahead, that there was bugger all chance of Papley going through. So we unfortunately through that whole period we were completely dependent on Dodoro, who not even myself, not just myself, but a lot of people have talked about in the industry that he's not probably the most well regarded person to deal with. So what I don't get is we didn't have a backup plan if Papley didn't go ahead. Just saw Dan Butler go for an absolute steal, pick 59 or something like that. Just saw who else came through. Look, I'm just stunned. I don't know what to say. Sam Gray, there wasn't a deal done there, which Sauce was very, very keen on. It's there was no Cutler, there was no moves on Cutler. A few people were quite interested in. I'm stunned.
Yeah, no, it's like you said, the backup plan wasn't there. I think as Sauce, and I'm not sure if everyone tuned in late to Trade Radio, Sauce was interviewed. He did point out that the Papley deal was contingent on the Joe Danaher deal happening. And if I don't hear that Joe Danaher name for another 6 years, I'll be very, very happy. So disappointing that you would think the Swans want to try and poach a contracted player in Danaher, and then at the same time don't want to release a player that wants to go in Papley. It seems to be very, very contradictory.
Yeah, it's a double standard. You're right. Yeah, good call.
And a double standard, like you said.
Good call.
Whether, Sauce believes something like that would happen, just looking from the outside in, if the deals that were discussed for Danaher in terms of 5 and 9 were rejected by Essendon, I think Essendon are very foolish. And by the sounds of it, if that did happen, we would be having a totally different situation, different conversation. But like you said, backup plan. You put your eggs in one basket in these sort of situations, and you can't necessarily promise a player or go after a player knowing you've got a limited arsenal to attract them or to trade with, and we had to keep those picks up our sleeve to get Papley. The Martin deal, a totally different situation, and by the sounds of it, the Suns being totally and seemingly unrealistic in terms of their requirements for Martin. And as Sauce said as well later in his interview just a minute ago, let's see what happens. He still wants to come to our club, and maybe we'll get him through the pre-season draft.
Yeah, that might be the way it goes. But you've always got the danger someone picks him up before us.
For sure. Michael McClure, Sauce gets an F. Justin Matmore says, I reckon Papley will retire. We helped the Swans. Another good point. Sam says we helped the Swans get Lewis Taylor. Doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. No. Another player that we probably could have had on our radar. Rising star winner Lewis Taylor could have been that extra mid that we might have looked at. Gary Bateman, total failure, very disappointing. Brad Miller also says, why did we help Swans with swapping picks? Danny Levine, spot on, not sure why everyone is pissed off. Let's have a chat about that side of the equation as well. Obviously, that those things haven't happened. We've got to deal with what we've got. I'm not sitting here thinking it's the end of the world. But certainly I think everyone was in the camp of, particularly Papley, that he would add a significant benefit to our footy club. Tony Emney, arrogance of the Suns is ridiculous. Michael Howell, no, everyone's pissed off. No, his point, giving up picks plays for the sake of it. Gold Coast asking way overs and don't write him off just yet. Just have some ripper kids at our club. Go Blues. Okay, so let's turn things around. Let's go back a few days ago, and
yes, please.
Well, you're not off the hook. You're not off the hook yet, mate. So don't sit too comfortably in that seat. So we've got a few things to talk about, don't we? But the news of Eddie Betts arriving was a good result, and by the sounds of it, we need Eddie to kick 100 goals next year.
Yeah, he's got to get back to career best quickly.
Yeah. I'm sure Eddie can do that at 32, and now he's back into a good environment.
Yeah. Look, hang on, I'm going to get some notes here.
Justin Matmore, what was so precious about pick 9? We should have traded it. Well, I think it was on the table. It was on the table to the Swans for Papley, Justin, and it wasn't, by the sounds of it, anything to do with the fact that it wasn't pick 9. It was the fact that, for whatever reason, I think Swans realised that if they weren't going to get Danaher, then there was no point in giving that up. Or they offered Essendon were going to take pick 9, and pick 5 for Danaher. So therefore, Swans didn't need pick 9. And therefore, that's why that trade fell down. It's not like we didn't pull it up with.
Yeah, Sauce was pretty adamant on that in his interview, wasn't he?
So we did offer it up. we did offer it up, and it came down to the fact that that Essendon rejected 9 and 5 for Danaher, which may prove to be their downfall if Danaher has a shit crappy year next year and does his grinds again.
Yeah.
So back to Eddie Betts. Look, a fantastic arrival for the footy club. There's been a lot of people up and about for Eddie. Eddie seems to be full of beans about what he can offer the footy club, and he thinks he's got some good footy ahead. We've got to go back to the drawing board now. We've got 2 picks. We've got 9, and we've got what else have we got?
Did put these up earlier. I'll try and scratch that out again. Keep going, then I'll get the info.
Sure. 9, I think we've got. Do we got 43 or 25? We've got 25. Maybe 9, 25, 43. I think something around those picks. Someone else will be able to tell me what our picks are. But we take those to the draft and we see what we can get.
Okay, so we've got 9, 43, 57, 70, and 85.
Okay, so 9's obviously our big pick. We've got some pick 43 or pick 41 a few years ago was Tommy Williamson. So there's some good players around that time. There's plenty of options there, and again, we're all sitting here with a bit of doom and gloom. But at the end of the day, my thought is that we've still got a very, very good list and a number of players to potentially fill those small goal kicking forward roles that we need to do, and that we've identified. Obviously, we've got Eddie there back. If Cunners can get a full pre-season into himself, he can potentially be that goal kicking forward we need. We've got players like Gibbons, who showed quite a bit towards the later parts of the year, and I think there's still plenty to offer in the goal kicking space for the Blues.
Yeah, look, it's I put up my best 22 a few days ago. Now, probably early last week, I think it was, and it was bloody hard enough to do it then. There's still plenty of talent there. We're still, unfortunately, there is really. Okay, my face is not coming up apparently.
Which for me is not a bad thing. And
do I need to go up or down, Brett?
You need to go up.
I need to go up.
Right. Yeah, much better. I can hide your face too. That might fix you too.
How's that?
There we go. You're back again. Yeah, no, that's good.
All right, cool. Thanks, Brett. Now, where was I? Forgotten.
Not sure. We're talking about our current
pressure on Eddie.
Your best 22.
Yeah, it puts a bit of pressure on Eddie now to come in and play that small forward role. Puts a bit of pressure on who we bring in and who he can develop to be to come in after him. But look, in terms of Eddie Betts, I was quite happy about the deal, and I'm unashamedly going to be a bit of a fanboy at the first training session, and be cheering his name because it's just a great thing to have back. Great player to have back at the club, but a great thing to happen. And then I was kind of thinking, about my kids and how when he was playing for us, how exciting he was, and when he left, my kids were I think 3 and 1. So they didn't really understand anything about football then, but now that 6 years on, they're going to have a great time watching him and cheering him on as well. So, that's just a brilliant thing. And I see a lot of future for Eddie off the field as well. In terms of that role as a small forward, I don't see anyone better in the country who can, teach people the craft of that role. So someone has mentioned Matt Owies. He's going to be perfect to learn from Eddie. And Matt Owies, from all I understand, is just takes the information in like a sponge. So he will come along in leaps and bounds.
And what I think. What I think too is this opens a really good door and a really good opportunity for Zach Fisher to find a potential permanent spot. I would like to see Zach Fisher become a small forward. I think with our other mids going on and our other players we've got running through the midfield, I think that his opportunities may be a bit limited. We've got Dow, we've got O'Brien, we've got SPS, we've got obviously Walsh. So, who else have we got sort of running through the guts there? Stocker coming through, Dow, we've got Murphy. So I think, if Fish can find a spot up as a small crumbing forward, I think that, he could make that position his own.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. You've listed a great amount of people through that mid role there. I'm going to throw Gibbo into that as well.
Gibbons, yep, for sure.
Who can run through there. Maybe it's that second sort of small forward position is a little bit more fluid. Gibbo goes through there, Cunningham goes through there, Fisher goes through there, and they sort of help out around the midfield and around the packs as well. Yeah, it's all still to be seen, and it's what is going to be hugely interesting now is the first few training sessions. Who does actually take up the role now?
Yeah. No, one of the other things and the other disappointing things that I was disappointed on not getting Papley, because I think Papley had a role to play as a potential clearance player. We've seen he'd done some good clearance work for the Swans, so I think that he may have developed into a clearance player given that other option. If we had the Betts and the Martins and the Fishers and other guys like that performing up forward. So I think he could have added some value and potentially looked at some midfield time as well, given he's still young and got that bigger body as well. So yeah, that's. Sorry?
I think that would have been a key part of him nominating Carlton, is that he would have run through the midfield and offered that clearance work. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
For sure. Let's get to our audience. Thank you very much for joining us Wednesday night, Carlton Live. Really appreciate you joining us. It's been a long week. Everyone's been glued to trade radio for no freaking reason at all. Those dim-witted people talk about bullshit all week, and it's just been trade after trade that's passed us by. So I won't get that week back, a week and a half back in a hurry.
Yeah, look, similarly, I've put a lot of work into the analysis, and I've got a list of about 20 players there, I think, who we were linked to, and we didn't get a bloody one of them.
Yeah. AJ Sharman, Doggies and Saints showed how it's done. Every one of everyone's they targeted, they got. Let's face it, the Saints had a lot of holes to fill. They've got a lot of list work to do. The players they targeted, I don't think any of those were contracted players. So they to their credit, you're right, they did some really good things. I think some Saints got Butler and they got Jones. They got some real good deals done.
Yeah, that's right, and that's a bit of a shaming point for us as we played second fiddle to Footscray and St Kilda in this.
Yep. Let's be honest. We only did target. We really did target two players, and those two players didn't come off. Whether that's a bit of arrogance or a bit of confidence in our own list, identifying those two players, having the others in the background. It's very hard, like I said earlier, to have a backup plan when you put all your eggs in one basket and you think they're going to happen. You can't say to someone like Dan Butler, we're going to pick you up only if we can not get another deal happen. They can't rely on those kind of what ifs. They've got to make choices for themselves, and particularly when we, as it's seen, been reliant on particularly Essendon to do what they needed to do. It's fallen in a big heap.
Yeah. And I think Essendon shafted us with the Phillips deal too. To be honest, we didn't seem to get much back from that.
Yeah, look, I'm not too fussed with that particular deal. Given we've got another backup guy in a young bloke in Pitnet or Pitney, whatever his name is. I think that was probably the best thing we were going to get under those circumstances.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so where do we go to now? We look forward to the draft. We also have the opportunity to do some rookieing. Anyone on your radar there? We've had some good players in the twos perform well for us. Fish has been consistent for a couple of years. We've got Frankie Anderson. Are any of those kind of guys on your radar, or do we, maybe spread our eyes a bit further into the VFL or Waffle? Is there someone out there that maybe we can look at in those roles?
Yeah, I think potentially now you have to look very, very broad. I think staying at home, does it bring Jesse Palmer back into calculations again as a rookie? Don't know the answer to that. This guy, I can never remember his name, and my apologies to him and anyone associated with him. But the Coburg little rocket that we almost picked up, forward pocket, who broke his finger before the preseason draft. He might be worth looking at and having a go at again. Tate Anthony's just said Sam Gray and Martin, they could be part of this preseason draft. Yeah, quite possibly. But assuming that there's no guarantees with the preseason draft. You're right, Trev. You have to look a little bit further. Frankie Anderson, I've mentioned his name before, and a lot of the viewers have been quite good with this in their feedback, saying the Saints and teams like the Saints were pretty well into him, and he'll probably go somewhere earlier in the draft than what probably we would have thought. So yeah, maybe one of those picks now we sort of target to keep him in our stable. Sam Fisher, I've been a fan of for a long, long time. I'd love to see him, at least get another shot as a rookie. Who else was I thinking of? I think Sauce has got his eyes heavily squared on. I'm still just stunned, mate. Can you yell someone else? Come back to me.
Rick Classen says, bring back Daisy Thomas as a forward. Funny you should say.
Redraft.
Get on the phone to him now, because we might pick him up too. I actually mentioned that during the year that I thought Daisy could have had a couple of years up in the forward line, but no, I don't see that. He'll probably go to Gold Coast now and rub it into us and play some good football alongside Jack Martin this year.
Jack Martin, Brownlow medalist, and Daisy Thomas leading goalkeeper.
Okay, so that now I suppose gives a bit more comfort to some players that may be hanging on for contracts. I think players like Darcy Lang out of contract probably gets a contract now. Levi Casbolt.
I see him as another one who could really learn from Eddie.
Yep. Yeah, showed some. I think he showed a little bit later in the year, particularly under Teague, with a bit more forward pressure, and a bit more pressure in general. We've got Levi Casbolt that's probably now going to get another deal. He wants two. I think he wanted two. I think an automatic one was there for his trigger clause. So probably Levi, would think he might get his 2 years now. Who else was out of contract that I can't think of right now that was still floating around? Probably DeLuca and Gibbons. I think probably also secure themselves another year, given the fact that they are. I think Gibbons
already has, mate.
Gibbons already has. That's good. DeLuca, he probably secures himself a year deal as well.
I would say so. Even though I was very critical of his pick, he still only had half a year to show himself, and there's no one really there to take his spot. So I'd say yes.
Yep. Chris Dimitrovic. G'day, Chris. Thank you for joining us. Bombers are the worst to do trade. I expect too much in trades. Always have. I hope it backfires on them. Yes, I agree. We hate the Essendon scum. Justin Matmore, Corns has said something about Carlton. Of course, he always does. I can't read that, unfortunately, but if you might let us know what he said. Probably don't want to hear it, but I can imagine what he's going on about. Probably saying it's a massive fail, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm too furious to read that at the moment.
Dane Rawlings, positive I can see recent years small forwards that have been drafted have come in and made an impact straight away. Good point. Bon Draper, g'day, Bon. How are you? Evening, gents. What are our chances of making the top 8? I think I'm still bullish. I'm definitely bullish about where our list is still. Let's say we got Papley and Martin. Is one of those players, both of those players, going to make a difference? I'm not really passionate about Martin in the first place. I didn't think he was really going to necessarily do anything. I think he was a pick and hope guy that we would hope could come good under our environment, and maybe again back with Eddie. We still get him, but I don't think he was going to be the saviour. I don't think necessarily Papley it was going to mean the differences of us making the 8 or not making the 8. But I think in terms of this profile of him and his age group, I think he would definitely contribute to us as we climb up there. But to answer your question, I'm still bullish of us having a crack at finals next year.
Yeah, likewise. As deflating as today was, I think when you take in all into consideration, we've still got a very, very strong list, and we're on the up.
Brett Oldham, g'day, Brett. Thank you very much. Lockie O'Brien will have a good year next year. Had a good game. Tommy's debut and be bigger and stronger after the pre-season. Good point, Brett. Thank you for joining us. Very much appreciate your comments. A very insightful football man and knows his stuff, and a great player to boot. Bit of an alcoholic, but aren't we all?
After tonight, yes.
Yeah, that's a captain. He's just a good fan of the show. Lockie O'Brien makes a good point. Mildura guy showed plenty, didn't he, at the end of the year? Really, really bullish on him. Yes, getting bigger and stronger, and having a good run for us next year. And that's the thing, isn't it? Pre-season into these guys like O'Brien, like Dow, like JSOS, all those kind of younger players that have been on the fringe for us. Owie, Setterfield, Williamson, Cunningham. Those guys have got so much development in them. It's not funny.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'd love to see Cunningham get a full year in. I've been a very big fan of his since day one, and I think we were starting to see last year why.
Yeah, maybe we could always go back to Ed Kerno as that small forward. That seemed to work for us.
Yes, Tate Anthony, Sam Gray. Yes, I did mention him as part of your comments before. Yes, if he goes through the pre-season draft, it's entirely possible that he can come across, and again for nothing.
Ricky Spencer, another one's pretty harsh. G'day, Ricky. Sauce doesn't survive. His metrics were clear. He can only list build, cannot add value. Well, I think that's a little bit harsh, Ricky. He's built a list so far that I think I'm confident in. I think it's the best list we've had in a very, very long time. Yes, he did put some eggs in the basket here. One hasn't worked out. But again, if you look at it from the perspective of whether those two players or one of those players was going to send us flying up the ladder, I don't think that was going to be the case. Okie dokie. What else have we got? Let's go back a bit to our last show, John. A lot of people have been questioning the few comments and the few bits of mail that you mentioned, and some other players that we might have also been targeting during this trade period. You mentioned that we were into a big fish, quote unquote. Can you fill in our audience as to where that sits and the story around that? I'm not sure whether you want to divulge the name, but that's up to you. Let's hear about that.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to divulge who the name is, but I'm not going to divulge who the Carlton players were who came across my desk as the ones who are going to be traded, because I don't think that holds any real value and can only just create angst. Suffice to say that they were two that were in my best 26 that I put up in the last week. But
the name that came across my desk, and this goes back to, pretty much when, how long does this go back? Pretty much goes back to when Ellis, things went tits up with Ellis. That just started to hear a little bit more about someone else who we were targeting. In fact, two, an interstate player and a Melbourne-based player. Andrew Gaff seemed the most likely at the time as the interstater that we were going to target. That didn't pan out. That went very quiet, very quickly. And the other one whose name come up, and I wasn't a big fan on the story because it was really only scratchy details and seemed like a bit of conjecture, was Ollie Wines. There was never really any momentum behind that. But the Melbourne-based player and Melbourne club-based player, the name that I actually got was Marcus Bontempelli. The story goes that prior to him going away overseas, he had directed his manager to suss out Carlton as to if there was any possibility that he could come across, and that's when the story sort of developed from there. And I ran with it because there was so much detail that was behind it, in terms of not only the Carlton players that were part of the deal, but also the timing that it was going to take, in terms of, okay, he got his manager to talk to us while he was away. There was Carlton players thrown on the table. It was all going to wait, and pretty much there was an agreement in place. I had thought, but it was going to wait until Bontempelli came back from his holidays over in Europe, and then when he came back, he was going to tell his club and his teammates face to face about what was going on, and then it was going to go from there, and the story was going to be broken by the Herald Sun. Now, I had three main sources to that whole story. The final one who gave me the name was very well connected within and without the Carlton Football Club, and also very well connected within the Herald Sun. So apparently there was someone there who was actually sitting on the story and told not to publish it until Bontempelli came back from holidays, and it all sort of went from there. So I think that is it in a summary. It was very, 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 very detailed, very, very strong, and that's why I thought I'd detail it as much as I could without giving away at the time who it was, because under then I was sort of told, no, this is hush hush. You've got to keep this to yourself, and I don't really want to piss anyone off on this because I want to keep doing this type of thing. I checked it off with the source, if I could release the name today, and they said, yeah, it wasn't really going to hurt them too much if it didn't go ahead. So there we are. That's where it sits.
I must admit, I did fall off my chair when you threw that name up to me last week, and very, very surprised. I think I think obviously you were surprised, no doubt, as well, that would be a name that could somehow be connected. But no, fair enough. You had that mail. We've all got some people who rely on for some information. We're not reporters. We're not deep involved in the industry, but like plenty of people within Carlton, we've got some connections within the club and connections around town, and we hear things and we like to talk about it. Whether there's any sort of smoke sometimes with fire, but you never know. A player of that ilk is not just going to come cheaply. It's not just going to come without some collateral damage, and it's going to be a big story if anything like that would happen. So, personally, I hadn't heard anything in relation to that, but maybe it's something, and we can look at it in the future and be a key target for us. I think he's contracted for another year now, or 2022. Maybe he'll be still looking if that's the case in a year or so.
Yeah. Look, Clinton McRae says it's not a new rumor. No, that's right. There was a lot of, well, not a lot, but there was a few people, rumor milling it around. Same with the Ollie Wines one. Those weren't particularly, it was just scratchy details and so forth. But it was, the amount of detail that I heard behind it just made it, a lot more solid.
I did say that I would do the show naked if the Bont was managed to get a crack at come to the Blues. So luckily for all our audience, that didn't happen. I'm sure I would have been happily sitting here in the nude drinking a couple of slabs of VB in celebration and pouring it over myself if that was to happen. So, but
I've got to admit now that I was the one who called sauce and say no deal. Call it off.
Maybe I'll just get naked anyway and celebrate the arrival of Mark Pittenay to the footy club. That seems a good enough reason to get naked on webcams.
Yeah, right. Let's do it. Come on.
Rightio. The other rumour that you went with last week, and we'll hold you to account for that one as well, was the Scott Camporelli male that you mentioned may have been coming along to the footy club as our reserves coach. I must admit that I did hear his name connected with the footy club, not necessarily in the reserves role, but part of our coaching panel. As it turned out, the stars aligned with him getting the flick from Adelaide, which seemed to me to think that he may be a potential person that we would have as part of our club. But it seems the coaching panels are now finalised. Do you still see that that's a possibility somewhere down the track, that him being offered a role at Carlton now that he's not formally with Adelaide?
It's a very, very interesting one because I think he's got the flick from Adelaide and being seen as really a negative influence over there. I wonder if that really hurts his chances of getting a job anywhere, to be honest with you. Not that I'm saying that he's a bad bloke or he's done something wrong and all that. People like to think that I want to crucify everyone as soon as I mention a name. And, Josh Fraser was another one. I'm glad you brought this up because people were thinking that I was out to get Josh Fraser, and I just wanted to clear this up. You and I think a couple others came on the show pretty much after Brendan Bolton got not going to say sacked because it's a negative word, but he got moved on. And we were sort of discussing, okay, what happens then with the current coaching panel? Because as normally what happens is that coaches sort of go, the extra coaches sort of go along with the senior coach. And we sort of pulled out two names out of that. Johnny Barker, what was he going to do? And the other one was Josh Fraser. Given that they'd both been at the club within particular roles for a long, long time, not to say anything bad about them, just in terms of their career, it might have been time for them to either look at another role within Carlton or outside of Carlton just to further their career. Not to say that they were shit, because if you know anything about Carlton, if they were shit, they wouldn't have lasted the 3-month trial period. They would have been off. Yeah, correct. So I thought with Josh Fraser, when I heard this news of Scott Camporelli coming to coach the seconds, it was, okay, well, Josh has, found another role with or without Carlton. It wasn't, sort of get rid of him type of thing. So I didn't mean any harm to him or his family whatsoever, and I just wanted to clear that up.
No, very good. Thank you very much. And like I said, I still think, from my information from Adelaide Footy Club, that he was, quite highly regarded, and in some was also in line, and maybe did even fill in at some point when they had their coach pass away. Did he fill in that particular case?
Sorry, say it again.
When Phil Walsh died, did Scott Camporelli fill in at that point?
Actually, I think he did. Yeah, he did.
Yeah. So, I thought he did a really good job in that trying circumstance, and was, quite highly regarded and potentially touted as the future Adelaide coach, or at least was offered to put his hand up for it. I don't think he decided to do that, but look, as I said, it was an interesting one. I still think that there's some Carlton people that would like to see him back, which is probably where some of the talk originated from. Whether there is a spot now on our coaching panel, unsure. But at the end of the day, Campo, is a great player for our footy club, and we wish him all the best in his future endeavours, what he decides to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, here.
Okie dokie. So, a couple of comments coming through. Thank you again for joining us on Carlton Live. The update of the trade period, it's all over and done with. We've got Eddie Betts and Mark Pitney. Fantastic result for our footy club. I shouldn't diss Mark Pitney. Welcome to our footy club. A Carlton player now, and we'll certainly get behind him, and hopefully he develops into a good player. Probably a good. I think it's a sensible pickup. Given the fact, Source is gone, and the fact of, Cruz not necessarily being Mr. Reliable these days, and TDK still coming through the ranks. So, and he's 23, so he's got a lot of upside to him as a player. We don't have to pay or get a lot for him, and he's a Blues player now. Well, hopefully he does his best for the footy club.
Yeah, look, that's a good point about him being 23. I mean, he's really 3 or 4 years off developing to the peak as a ruckman, isn't he? Traditionally, that's the age where good ruckman peak. I'm excited that it's really going to mean that TDK is going to have to take on a lot more responsibility in the twos now with both Phillips and sorry, brain's gone. Phillips and Lobe, now that they're gone, TDK is pretty much going to carry the ruck along with Pitney, and he's going to develop a hell of a lot more quickly. But I think TDK is at that time, if his body stands up, that he's going to be able to do that.
Yep, for sure. Good question here from Nathan Khalija. G'day, Nath. Thoughts on no midfield help for Cripps? What would have happened if Murphy, Ed go down? Cutler would have been decent. Well, I suppose if you lose, two centre players underneath you, you're always going to struggle, and not a lot of midfields back too deep, three or four deep. I think we've got. I think Ed Curnow should step up and should have that second option as our midfielder. I think Will Setterfield has got fantastic upside in the guts. I think we've still got Liam Stocker to develop. They're not players that necessarily going to set the world on fire straight away or expect to be in the ilk of Cripps, of course. But these are players I think that can be very good positive contributors in our midfield. Gibbons, I think I'm really confident in Gibbons now that he's had this season under his belt to make another step. I think he's got the taste of it. He's got a good coach and a good aggressive coach behind him. So I'm tipping Gibbons to have a really good year next year, and of course maybe Toluca might surprise a few of us and step up as well. I think he's still got a lot to offer. So. Again, I think we've got plenty of options. Plus, again, potentially, rookieing someone like an Anderson or a Fisher from our twos. So, not the end of the world in the guts.
No, absolutely not. I think someone mentioned earlier, and you mentioned as well, how good O'Brien had as a season, and we mentioned on this show towards the end of the season that players were actually really, really looking for him to be that release kick or that relief kick out of the back line because you knew when he got it along the wings, he was going to do something with it.
Everyone's talking about this big-bodied midfielder. You're talking about an 18-year-old kid that came into our footy side this year, rising star winner, skinny as they come, and the amount of touches he got and the way he performed. So a big-bodied midfielder is not the be and end all, but Ed Curnow in there for next year, getting a full crack at the centre and keeping him away from tagging. Who else have we got? So again, a multitude of options I think we've got in there to help Cripper out, plus some options in the pre-season draft.
Yeah, so I want to get back to Setterfield if I could. Obviously a big rat for his. I talk him up every week because I just see a hell of a lot of talent there, and he really just had to get his body right and get confidence within his knee along a wing. I think that was also a development thing for him as well, to sort of be able to to play that sort of outside role and also a marking role, a link-up marking role, which I think he did really, really well. and then could push forward and kick some goals. So I think that during training, pre-season training this year, he'll probably be used a little bit more on the inside. And, because that's where he's played most of his footy, but he'll take those learnings of playing on a wing from, for when he has to spread. So I think he's got potential of being really, really dangerous. And now that I think that we've got Doc back, SPS comes out of that back line and he plays another wing role.
Yeah, look, I think, maybe next week when we do our show next week, and hopefully we've got a new panel member to join us as well. We look at our, best 22 post the preseason or pre the preseason draft. And I think there'll be a bit of swinging around of players. So it'll be interesting to see where that looks at now.
Yeah, let's just quickly talk about next week's show, because I'm really, really looking forward to it. Now, if you didn't see my post during the week, we've got a new staff member on board, Sonia Perishon, who, not sure if she'll be available next Wednesday to do the show, but she's going to be a fantastic addition to the panel here. She's got wonderful knowledge of Carlton, wonderful knowledge of football. And what we were all really impressed about was, her ability to sort of tell a story and, really to engage. So I think she's going to be a wonderful, real asset to us. But what I'm most looking forward to about next Wednesday is that we're going to bring Andrew Lake on, who's never been he hasn't been on our show, at least on the camera side before. He's been doing some wonderful work on Blue Horizons, which is, he's one of the creators of that site. He's been doing some wonderful writing on the Britain years. So I floated it with him during the week, if you'd like to come on camera and really talk through that story of the Britain years, because really it's such a fascinating time in the Carlton Football Club, where pretty much you've gone from one of the highest of highs in Carlton's history, knocking Essendon off, to the lowest of lows in 2002, in that very, very short time period. So it's going to be great to get his view on things, and also really looking forward to everyone's memories to that particular time period. I wasn't as much an analyst of the game as I was, as what I am now. Back then, I'd go with a mate to the footy and we'd start drinking at 2 p.m. and then, have a couple in the social club after, and then end up at the G-Bung Polo Club until midnight. It was probably more of our interest then. But, so it'd be really good to revisit those days. So that's next Wednesday night, 7:30. We'll be talking through the Britain years, and we'll also be talking through, as you mentioned, the best 22.
You mentioned Sonia was on staff. Does that imply that she's getting paid? Because I haven't seen a red tent from you. I haven't seen a red tent from you. Is there something I should know about?
She's on the same as all of us.
Does she actually know that? Because she might not have agreed. She said you're coming on the staff. She might be expecting a benefit package.
But anyway, wonderfully, I can't wait to talk to Sonia.
No, that's something I'm looking forward to as well, and certainly will hopefully add a balanced view to our big buff-headed views that we come on with as well. We'll wrap things up in a little while, but something you want to discuss, and a few people have also mentioned and questioned what the plan is from here in terms of pick 9 in particular. A pretty good pick, to be fair, and don't forget that's up our sleeve, and something we might not have to give away. Well, now that we haven't given it away for someone like Martin and get for free, is it a case of go back to the drawing board and look at a small forward that's up and coming, or is it the case of what they all say, and that is let's get the best available at that particular juncture?
No, best available. I think we've talked about that. There might be other ways now to get particular small forwards in. Someone has mentioned, and sorry if I haven't picked up your name through this, but mentioned up Wakeman as being probably the best small forward. He will definitely be in calculations for pick 9. But we'll see how that plays out. Definitely best available. Sure. I think in the later picks, we'll definitely look at a young up and coming ruckman and have them, sort of sit 3 or 4 years behind now, TDK and Pitney,
Yep.
and just watch them develop through. Definitely not someone who's going to be, straight into a ruck role. That's what I think we'll do with one of the later ones. And and like I mentioned before, another one of those later ones might go to Frankie Anderson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, I know there are some clubs talking to him. Carlton is one of those clubs. We've seen plenty of players be pulled out of the mid-season draft. One of them played in the grand final this year and turned it on. I think DeLuca showed a bit for us as well. So I think there's still plenty of opportunities to get some talent in the door to fit some needs that we have and see us rise up the ladder as we all want to see us do.
Yeah, Archie Banson's a possible as a father-son pick. Yeah, that's a good point. Now, just before we move on, and I'm sure Kano will be sitting there in the green room somewhere.
Actually, Kane's just messaged me. He's had his first day at work today on a new job. So well done, Kano. So he hasn't managed to get home in time. So he'll
good on him
next week. So good on to Kane. Congratulations on your first day, mate. Hope it went well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, all right. So the last thing that was really on my agenda was the Carlton train. Look them up on Facebook. They're sort of doing a bit of a thing at the moment as to what do we call the whole collective of Carlton supporters, and the whole momentum that's behind us as well. So to give you an example, you've got the Tiger Army. For the Giants, you've got the Orange Army. Freo, you've got the Purple Haze. What do we call that collective now of Carlton? Now, for a long time, we've been known as the Blue Baggers. I'm not really sort of sold on that as sort of a forward momentum driving sort of a force. So just have a look at up that on Facebook, Carlton Train, and just to see what a couple of the ideas that have been thrown around there.
Good call. Look those guys up for sure. Mate, I think that just about does it. We've done an hour show. It was quite a different show than we probably anticipated doing. A little bit of Kumbaya Irish, but there's other ways to skin a cat, so they say, and we might skin one cat in the preseason draft. It's an interesting situation. This draft hasn't worked out for us this year to get our man, but like I said, I'm not too fussed, and I can sleep still soundly at night knowing we're on well and truly the right direction.
Yeah. Oh, look, we are. That's really the main point of it. But I thought we'd be coming on here tonight. We'd be elated. We'd be absolutely on top of the world. We'd be talking about best 22. Absolutely arguing like cats and dogs who goes out of the best 22. That it was all a bit of a letdown, wasn't it?
Well, the best bit of news is that hopefully, this also means that Casbolt's not going anywhere. I've said before he can play tall, he can play small, he can play midfield. That he's that kind of guy, he's that kind of versatile. So if we play like Casbolt on our list, we're bound to be going places.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you everyone for their support over the past couple of weeks. It's been very, very tough couple of weeks. Thank you all for all your support. It's been fantastic. I'm probably going to go offline for a while, I think.
I've got some. I've still got some Bombay gin left from a few weeks ago. You can come over and have a drink with me, mate. It's all right.
Yeah, good idea.
We can share it. All right. Thank you, John. Thank you for a good night. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Really appreciate you and your comments. We love you guys. Appreciate all of your contributions. Russell Dobson has probably said the comment of the night just coming through. I'll go and dance with my sister now. Yeah, pretty much the result. Go and dance with Beck Judd. She probably needs some support tonight too. Sauce won't be in a very good mood, I wouldn't imagine, to go home to. All right, that's it.
Joe Bailey?
Joe Bailey, that's it. Oh, someone asked me about Solar Century in the questions. I didn't get to that, but no, I didn't. I won a year's supply of cat food, and that was my crowning achievement on the show.
And you don't have a cat.
I was so poor. I ate it for 3 months, and no, I still every now and again I still open up a can of Snappy Tom and get some good memories.
Hey, do you remember the day that what was it, Gary Hockey changed his name to Whiskers for a day?
Yeah.
Dear.
Those were the days.
Oh,
On that note, again, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. We've had a bit of fun during the trade season, putting up some memes and things like that. It's been a bit of fun, and we appreciate your getting involved. We're on Twitter now as well, so if you want to join us on Twitter, check us out. We're on Instagram as well. Check us out there. Follow us, do whatever you need to do. It's all part of our big community as well, and that's all you guys. So good night to you, John. Good night to everyone, and we will see you next week.
Yeah, good evening, and again, check out Blue Horizons. Have a good read of Andrew Lake's writing on the Britain years, and we'll talk about that next Wednesday. It's a good trip down memory lane.
Perfect. Good night.